Oh, hi there. I'm gonna shoot you in the knee. What? Why would you do that? Because I just became an atheist, so now there is no God telling me what's right and wrong. In consequence, there is no right and wrong. And I think shooting you would be fun. I always wanted to shoot people actually, the only thing that prevented me was the belief in a God. Doesn't it count for nothing that I don't wanna be shot? Well, not really. You see, without absolute morality, all we are left with are personal moral codes, which are reduced to personal values, which are basically reduced to preferences. And I know it's your preference not to get shot, but it's my preference to shoot you, and without a standard of judgment, your preference is not more important than mine, so I'm gonna do what I want. You are implying that the standard for moral judgment can only be divine, that God can be the only objective basis for morality, otherwise there is no objective morality at all. I hold this statement to be false. My position is that we can logically determine what is right and wrong by analyzing the nature of things. Sorry, but I call bullshit on that. Without God there is no absolute truth, and good and evil are only matters of opinion. Is darkness the absence of light? Or is light the absence of darkness? I don't see the relevance. Is this a trick question? It's a question to which both answers would be equally valid if we had no access to an objective truth. But we know that darkness is the absence of light. Whether it is the sun or a light bulb, there must be something generating the light. And in the absence of a light source, there is darkness. So what? I concede that we can know some objective truths, but this cannot be applied to the realm of morality and ethics, because unlike darkness and light, good and evil are only concepts that exist within the human mind. Without human consciousness, there would be no right and wrong. Let's say that no humans exist on planet Earth, and there is this bunny being squashed by a giant rock. The bunny is in great pain and he cannot get from under the rock. Would you say that this is a good or a bad thing? It's neither good nor bad if there is no one to create and define such concepts. So you think that the bunny suffers less because there are no Homo sapiens evaluating the situation? The bunny's suffering is subjectively bad because the subject in question is having a painful experience. But you are arguing for objectivity. All living creatures with the capacity to experience suffering are living their lives trying to avoid it. So wouldn't you say that suffering becomes objectively bad since it affects all subjects in the same way? I don't think this applies to all subjects. I mean, there are people going to wars and willingly expose themselves to suffering. And then there are the people who intentionally try and enjoy experiencing pain. Yes, because for these people going to wars, the suffering of being poor, or their families being poor, or maybe their country being invaded, is greater than the suffering they expect to endure during the wars. As for the sadomasochists, their perception of suffering is different than yours. For them, being in physical pain is not really suffering. So doesn't this all make it subjective? No, our personal interpretation of the levels of suffering may be subjective, but suffering itself is an objectively bad experience that all subjects try to avoid. That's why one of the principles we should base our morality around is that causing suffering is bad. And you can apply this to anything you can think of, from rape to murder to anything else. I know that stealing your wallet will cause you suffering. I know that suffering is bad. Therefore, I must accept as a rule that stealing is bad. But what if my kids are literally starving to death, and I steal from this obscenely rich guy who won't even notice it? Am I still immoral for taking the money from someone who doesn't need it to save my own kids? Or what if I kill someone to defend my own life? What happens to the rules of stealing is bad and murder is bad in these situations? Well, there are of course extraordinary circumstances in which you cannot be really held as immoral for committing such acts, but this doesn't excuse the acts themselves from being immoral. To give an analogy, you can agree that having your arm cut off is a horrible thing. But now consider that you have a gangrene and the only way to save your life is for the doctors to amputate your arm. Now, would this automatically imply that having your arm cut off is not bad after all? No, it would only show that under extraordinary circumstances, a bad thing is preferable to an even worse thing. I still don't buy it. I mean, you're talking about objective morality here. And objectivity by definition is something not influenced by emotions and based on facts. And all this sounds like unfactual, emotional mush, to be honest. Isn't it a fact that biological complexity is directly correlated to the capacity of experience? And isn't it a fact that all living things able to consciously have bad experiences are trying to escape being harmed? But why should there be any value in being decent and not harming others? Like David Hume said, you cannot derive an ought from an is, a value from a fact. Yes, you being able to feel pain is a fact, but this doesn't prove there is a real value in me not harming you. And how not shooting you would do me any good? How is it morally objective for me to ignore my own desires just so I don't cause you suffering? Well, would you like to get shot in the knee? Hell no! If people would act only by their own desires and ignore the suffering they inflict on others, then the society would be a more dangerous, vile place to live in for everyone, including you. Would you like to live in a society where anyone could rape you or beat you up or shoot you at their will? No. So if you analyze the moral consequences, wouldn't you agree that shooting me in the knee would objectively be a wrong action for you to take? I think I need a joint.